Welcome to the Günther Fehlinger podcast. This is the show which is growing, and we are growing like the Eurozone is growing, and that's good. We have now 125,000 followers on X, and we are at 15,000 plus at YouTube. And of course, this show develops with the guests, and this is a big honor to have a very important guest at a very important moment again, because today we welcome Professor Krassen Stanchev from Bulgaria, and we are going to celebrate Bulgaria's membership in the Eurozone. This is amazing, and I'm very happy to welcome you, Professor.
It's
Welcome.
about 36 hours to go.
It's
Thank
the
you for the
moment to
invitation.
be, and this show is timely as always. Professor Krassen Stanchev is a good friend of this show. You have already made, I think, a 3 hour interview about Bulgaria's economic transition in 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And everybody who is interested, please go to that show, because today we will discuss this and one amazing achievement: Bulgaria, the full member of the West in the Eurozone. And Professor Krassen is ex-MP. He was one of the leading persons in the 90s to bring Albania and Bulgaria into the democracy. You were a member of the Bulgarian Constitutional Assembly, a member of the Mont Pelerin Society, the Network of Constitutional Economics. I see a big list actually of achievements, and also the Academia Balkanica, the honorary board member of the Bulgarian Chamber of Commerce, and the professor at Sofia University. You teach public choice macroeconomics and regulatory economics, and a distinguished professor at the Tbilisi Free University, former executive director, now board member of the Institute of Market Economies. And if I call you the father of the euro, that's maybe too much, but I'm very happy that you are here, because you had a crucial achievements towards the last 30 years of economic transition of Bulgaria. And I'm very happy that you take time to celebrate the euro zone membership of Bulgaria. Professor, the floor is yours. Introduce yourself and let's celebrate the Eurozone together.
It is probably the longest period of joining the euro. Bulgaria is a champion in long periods, but actually, the story started in March, July 1997, when the Bulgarian central bank lost its independence from monetary policies at discretion of the government. Actually, it became independent from the government, and then the Bulgarian left. The local currency was pegged to the D-mark at the exchange rate 1 to 1. And when Germany entered the Eurozone, since then, Bulgarian left is pegged to the euro. And central bank is independent, with some, of course, problematic periods. Probably 11 years ago there was such a period. I can explain if somebody is interested. But actually, there is no question that Bulgaria is not qualified to be a member of the Eurozone because of the fixing the exchange rate in 97, 28 years ago.
It was
So
a very courageous decision, and I think you were also involved in that decision. And please
there was
describe why it was done and what happened exactly in the 90s in Bulgaria.
the debate on fixing the exchange rate or making the monetary policy of the central bank independent from Bulgarian politicians started very early. Actually, the first idea was expressed by a group of advisors from the American Chamber of Commerce as early as 1990 as one of the options for monetary policy independence of the Bulgarian National Bank. Then the debate was renewed. Then Bulgaria defaulted on its foreign debt. Bulgaria, by the way, is a champion also on defaulting in the 20th century. In the 20th century, Bulgaria defaulted on its government debt about 6 times. And this is
But this was in the early part during your development of a nation, because Bulgaria became independent only, I think, in 1908 or 1905, was it?
Yes, but there were 2 defaults before the communist years, and 3 defaults during the communist years, and 1 default after the communist years.
But now you are safely inside the European Union and a full member of the West. It was tremendous success now with joining Schengen, joining the Eurozone. You really have a good period now.
Since Bulgaria joined the Eurozone, actually, let me explain why the currency was pegged to the D-mark. It is very simple. The central bank was independent from international interference, but very much dependent from Bulgarian politicians. And in 95, Bulgarian politicians initiated policies which resulted in 97 as the highest inflation in the world and the 17th highest inflation of the 20th century in the world. So the inflation rate for January 97 was about 3,000% for a month. This is a monthly inflation. So
this was like the second breakdown after the transition 1990. 97 was a kind of a
it was
breakdown
much
moment.
severe, much more severe than the first one. And it was caused by the desire of the socialist government to reintroduce central planning in 95. And in 2 years, Bulgaria ended up with the highest inflation in the world. So as you see now, Venezuela, Bulgaria was Venezuela in 97. So the poverty rate jumped from like 9% of the population, the extreme poverty rate, from 9% of the population in 95, end of 95, to 40% of the population at the beginning of 97. So the average pension was $5, about 10 D-marks in January 97, and the average salary in the industry was about $20 or 40 D-marks in January 97. So there was no choice. Although many of the economists in Bulgaria predicted this thing, this option, this policy option to secure the independence of the central bank, but the politicians were against. And they had the hard lesson to be learned in 97. So that's why, democratic and pro-market, pro-European and pro-NATO coalition government of 97 basically fixed the exchange rate, started the accession to the NATO first in 2004, and then to the European Union, which happened in 2007. But
This
between
was
the
the Union of Democratic Forces. It was the victory of the Union for Democratic Forces with, I remember, Sofiansky and Stoyanov. These were the personalities driving the change.
yeah, and then Prime Minister Kostov.
These are the three leaders. Wonderful. Really, they had the courage in the most dramatic moments to propose NATO, EU, and the Europact.
And there was a full consensus in the society and in the parliament then for these two policy futures of Bulgaria.
I was myself in Sofia at a visit of EDS at that moment, and I remember meeting all the leaders, the prime minister, president, and also the mayor of Sofia, and they were selling this kind of tremendous things that they will go to NATO, they will go to the EU, and they will pack the euro, and they will do the complete property restitution, full property restitution. What a
It actually
wonderful
happened.
thing.
All this actually happened, and the result was, for this 28 years, was that Bulgaria used to have the best fiscal record with the lowest deficit of many years with surpluses. Of these 28 years, surpluses were roughly 10 years, and for the rest of, with the exception of 2 years, the budget deficit was on average at the level of 1.1% of GDP.
It is a tremendous economic miracle, actually, what Bulgaria has achieved in the last 30 years.
Yeah, if somebody wants to read, the history, it's very well written in the Bertelsmann Stiftung Sustainable Governance Indicators report for 2022. And then Bulgaria's tax system looks as good as Switzerland or Estonia.
Describe the tax system of Bulgaria, because I think you had some kind of influence on shaping it.
Yeah, we led the campaign for about 11 years, to introduce equal tax or flat tax.
Bravo! Yes! It's
Macedonians call it
10%.
yeah, 10%. Macedonians call it equal tax. We call it flat tax. But I think Macedonians are more correct in naming that system. But with that system, in terms of fiscal policy, Bertelsmann Stiftung indicators for 2002 give the history of Bulgarian fiscal performance and, of course, economic performance, and it's one of the best among the OECD countries, although Bulgaria is still a candidate for membership in the OECD.
But because we are at the end of 2025, I was told by some sources in the Austrian government that 26 you will be a full member of OECD.
It's quite likely, and I believe Bulgaria will resist some of the tax ideas of the OECD.
No, yeah, the OECD will not force you to increase the taxes, I hope.
I hope to. At least,
Because
we are in a constant debate since the introduction of the flat tax.
Mhm.
It was 10%. I can explain why it is 10%. But since the introduction
Explain
of
it, because I'm always promoting the Bulgarian economics for everybody in the world, because it's the best economic system possible for a transition economy, what you do. And 10% taxation is one of the miracles and one of the fundamentals of this Bulgarian
so
economic miracle.
the system is really, I mean, we basically applied one of the principles of Milton Friedman, who basically said that the best tax reform is reduction of the taxes.
Yes.
so, but after that, whatever crisis I described of the 90s, Bulgaria needs an engine to grow and to attract investment and that sort of stuff, because with the hyperinflation, the domestic savings were basically depleted from 52% of GDP in 95 to 6% at the beginning, 6% of GDP in 97. So the only way, to reform the system was to simplify the taxes and allow, for better rule of law and especially protected property rights, equalizing everyone, foreigners, Bulgarians, all the Bulgarians. So, and we calculated in 98, we calculated what is the actual tax being paid by Bulgarian companies and Bulgarian citizens on their income. And it happened that the actual tax paid is 12.9% of what is requested by law. So we didn't believe our calculations because, mathematics is mathematics, reality is reality. And we decided to test the calculations calling tax advisors. And I called one company advising how to optimize taxes. And I said, we have here 10,000 to hide. What's your fee? And they said, oh, that's 1,000. So then we called another company and we said, here's 100,000 to hide. What's your fee? And they said, this is 10,000. So we tested this 3 times, and it happened that it's so. And if the actual, according to the econometric data, if the actual tax paid was less than 13%, it was relatively easy, to convince even the socialist government then or coalition where socialists were taking part. So to convince them that they will get higher revenue if they implement a 10% tax on profit and 10% tax on income, which actually happened in 2007 and 2008. And the result
Since then,
was
you have a very good tax system, probably the best in the world. 20 years of success.
so that the interesting thing is that there is no minimum threshold under which people don't pay taxes. You earn 100 euros, so you pay 10 euro tax. You earn 10,000, euro, and you pay 1,000 euro tax. So this basically pushes the competition, for high income. So, and in order to have a high income, you should produce and invent something which others are willing to pay.
And you are really like a miracle economy the last 20 years. It's really the best system,
It's
given
not
where
that
you have
good.
been.
It's not that good in the recent years, and we will come to that, I believe. In the recent years, the fiscal discipline was destroyed, not so much because of the COVID, but because of the frequent elections. After 2021, Bulgaria had about 7 elections, presidential plus presidential elections plus municipal elections. And in 3 months from now, we will have 8 elections for 4 years.
That's some kind of negative record.
And the political competition leads, to losing the stable background provided by the fiscal discipline. Actually, in the last 2 months, there were protests in Sofia, and they were protests against, how to say, senseless fiscal policy of the government, and in a sense, they were tax revolts, tax protests. So
What did the government propose?
they propose increasing the taxes on labor, the so-called social security, and at the same time, to keep some sort of a kleptocratic structure of the government, they proposed very high salaries to government employees and public sector enterprises, plus very high salaries to the police and the prosecutors. So they increase for the last 5 years. They increase the government salaries. Population is declining, but the number of public employees is going up. So for the last 5 years, they increased the salaries of the public servants by almost 200%.
200% for the public salaries.
193%.
No, that's extremely. I
And
remember the Hungarian socialists did the same mistakes, some 2 decades ago, and that led to the total collapse, that you
Yes,
cannot do.
yes, that was in 2004 and 2005. I know the Hungarian situation very well because in the electoral campaign in Bulgaria in 2005, we used the example of Hungary in order to defend fiscal discipline, and then we used that argument in order to introduce a flat tax.
That was such a beneficial move. So the people are upset because of the high increases in the public salaries.
Yes. So they basically treated this as a plunder.
That's of course very, very negative. And also they have increased the social security tax. Will it now be implemented or will it be part of the election campaign?
No, because the protests forced the government to resign. What we will have for 2006, we will have the budget for 2005. So, which is basically the same rules
25.
of the game.
So you
Yeah.
will continue the budget of 2025.
Yes.
Okay.
But of course, we will have again a debate on taxes, fiscal policy, and that sort of stuff.
But I hope you will keep the flat tax of 10% because it's the one of the fundament of your economic success.
Yes, people are relatively happy and they understand this very well. Uh, so if you look at wealth indicators, the personal wealth after the introduction of the flat tax in the first years has growing by 20% because of the growing income after tax. So, and it was 20% for the companies, and it was 20%, 27% for the individuals. While in the same time, the revenue, the budget revenue, increased and remained stable for all these years.
Very good. When the
This is off a
OECD,
curve.
yeah, absolutely. When the OECD is pressuring you to increase the taxes, you should complain to the German Chancellor because Mr. Merz is a big fan of the flat tax. He was always, yeah. Maybe he's
There,
not saying it so
there are
publicly now.
lots of reasonable uh, politicians in the European Union, you know, who are in favor of simpler and easier to pay taxes, basically in line with 1755 principle of Adam Smith that what you need for prosperity, for opulence, is peace, easy taxes, and tolerable administration of justice.
Exactly.
So,
And also, I think in America, we have now good tax system, lower taxes. At least Trump has made a tax reform of 21%. So I'm sure that he will not support the OECD imposing any 15%
no,
minimum tax.
OECD cannot impose. The debate of unification of tax rates in the European Union is very old. I remember I was part of that debate since 1996. We were even having a series of lectures on the tax unification or against tax unification, actually tax competition in the European Union at the Nuffield College in Oxford, you know, in 1996. So since then there is a debate. But if you look at the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, it does not mention direct taxes at all. I mean, there is one mentioning of direct taxes, which basically says that these taxes should be fair, and nobody knows what fair means. But on indirect taxes, there are 41 provisions of the treaty which basically focus on the freedom of movement of capital and people and goods within the European Union. And for that reason, you know, the treaty is dealing with the indirect taxes, not with the direct taxes. Direct taxes remain managed by competitive and confederative principles of the European Union.
So I hope you will
Very few
stay at the
people understand
10%.
this tax confederation of the European Union.
So hopefully the Bulgarian role model of 10% flat tax will be coming for all European countries, and that would be really very
when you
advantageous
mention
for.
Chancellor Merz, uh, similar debate we had in Italy before the last elections. So the ruling coalition behind Meloni, they are flat tax inclined to think about. The problem is that they cannot decide at what threshold to fix it, you know, so at 15, 20, or 25, you know. So
What do you recommend for Italy?
for Italy, I believe, you know, it should be like in Bulgaria.
10%?
Yeah, for one very simple reason. Uh, uh, Italian tax system is very complex. So another thing which is very peculiar for Italy, the biggest community, biggest group of taxpayers are cooperatives. And the cooperatives, they pay 10% tax, basically, you know, if you take, you know, all these complicated processes of paying taxes. So if the biggest taxpayer is paying 10%, so then the system should be fixed at 10%. Similar debate is going on in Sweden. I know it by personal experience. I was invited by the Swedish Taxpayers Association to review the flat tax reforms in Europe, including ex-communist countries, and to deliver a report to different committees of the Riksdag in Stockholm. So, and they are inclined. The ruling coalition in Sweden is inclined to discuss and then probably introduce a flat tax on personal income, not so much corporate, but on personal income.
That would be fantastic and a big
That
change.
would be fantastic, but they have a high budget deficit this year, and they are basically delaying,
Maybe Sweden will join the Eurozone as well after the example of Bulgaria.
I don't know. I don't know. But yes, it will be beneficial for Sweden. I'm absolutely sure.
I'm actually always, in my whole work as development consultant, I always refer to the Bulgarian economic miracle and the Bulgarian economic model for the world. And especially when I worked in Ukraine in the government, I was always saying, do it like Bulgaria. This is the way to do it. And then they all looked at me, oh, Bulgaria is such a poor country. Why should we do it like Bulgaria? It's not
No,
working.
Bulgaria even before the last war of Russia against Ukraine, was 3 times richer in all the indicators.
And then
Actually,
Ukraine.
because one of the reasons for the war was that Ukraine was gradually moving itself, towards a simpler tax system and simpler business system, less regulations, more trade, more openness, and that sort of stuff. Having a functional democracy, not perfect, of course, but it was a very bad example for the Russians. So, and the Russians could have, like the success of Ukraine, and then dismantle the rule of Kremlin. So
What can Ukraine learn from Bulgaria?
we had this debate 1 month before the war. I was in Kiev then. I think we've met then.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember it was very nice that you contacted me and we are looking
Yes.
forward. And I think the Bulgarian model was before the war, I was promoting it. But even today, it's much more urgent to follow the Bulgarian model for Ukraine with the Euro pact,
They
with the
actually,
10%.
Ukraine actually reformed the tax system.
Mhm,
Paying taxes in Ukraine is almost a voluntary act, especially income tax.
mhm.
And people do pay. People do pay, and they pay basically what is required by law. So they are trying, to reform some of the uh, 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 tax regulations on smaller companies and that sort of stuff. Currently, a large group of Ukrainian economists are basically debating this with Verkhovna Rada in Kiev and with the government, and I believe, they will manage to convince the government to keep the system as it is, at least. And it is
10% would
no,
be
it is
perfect.
18. No, they have 18% flat tax plus 1.5% military tax, defense tax. And
But it's
what
too
is
high. It's much better to have Bulgaria in 10%.
of course, but at the moment before the beginning of the war, the only tax they were paying fully was the military 1.5% tax.
Mhm.
On the rest of that, those 18%, there were different loopholes, and people were trying, somehow to avoid. And because of that attempt to avoid paying 80%, 18% tax, the next reform should be to reduce, which will open after the war, which will open a huge highway, for reconstruction and prosperity.
What about the currency of Ukraine? Because they have a complicated record with constant devaluation in Ukraine. And you had a different model because in 97 you introduced the so-called currency board or peg, and
Yeah.
you stabilized the left towards the euro. And that was the basis for your fundament of this enormous success of the last 30 years. Is it possible to have a similar model for Ukraine?
Since 2018, the policies of Ukrainian central bank are basically reasonable, uh, but with the war, they didn't have much of a choice but basically devaluating, and devaluating. At the moment, the defense expenditures of Ukraine are roughly 46% of GDP. So it's huge. It's a country which is in a war. Uh, so it is possible to do. I mean, I remember some of the speculations of von Mises during the First World War. He was basically thinking that you don't need the government to finance the entire war effort. It should be done, by private sources, with outsourcing, with accumulation of debt to pay the armaments and the war costs after, and that sort of stuff. And I believe Ukraine at the moment is following this model, not because they are so much Misesian in terms of their thinking of economic policies, but simply because they don't have a choice.
Let's see. Also, the future could be a currency board towards the euro. And I have advocated already for the introduction of the euro, similar like in
We
Kosovo and
were
Montenegro.
proposing this. We were proposing, meaning the person who was instrumental in setting the currency board here, Warren Coates, who has a lifetime achievement award in central banking, and who fixed the Bulgarian central bank and the Bosnian central bank and the Afghan central bank and the Kazakhstan central bank. So we were proposing this in March 2014, before the annexation of Crimea in Kiev, but the annexation of Crimea basically frees the reform efforts in these respects as well.
It would have been a wonderful thing to introduce the euro in Ukraine. But now let's come to Bulgaria back because no, maybe one moment just because also I think you know very well the level of support for Bulgaria for Ukraine. Are you basically supplying things for Ukraine? Do you send weapons? Do you send material? What's exactly the
Every
situation?
every third cannon used in Ukraine by the Ukrainian army, every third cannon for the guns, So
Really? Every
yeah,
third cannon comes from Bulgaria.
yes.
You are like the arsenal of freedom for the Ukrainians.
Yes, and this is private sector. This is not so much the government. The government was very slow, reluctant, and undecisive on like many of the European governments. But Bulgaria is notorious, for slow government on this respect as well.
But your private sector is having a strong defense industry and you produce
Yes,
also artillery shells, I think, for
yes,
Ukraine.
yes, yes,
Very
yes.
good. Thanks a lot for what you're doing. I didn't know that you do so much for Ukraine.
Uh, this is the estimate of the Ukrainians, of the President Zelensky.
Perfect. Bulgaria, again, here a role model for the world. You have prepared some history of the Bulgarian currency. Can you show this table?
Oh yeah. So the key is independence.
Yeah, very
So
good.
in the entire history, Bulgaria has one of the oldest central banks in Europe. Uh, Bulgarian lef was created 141 years ago. So, but for the entire history, it was independent of it. The central bank of Bulgaria was independent and following a very strict conservative monetary policy only until the Balkan Wars of 1912, 1913. Since then, the Bulgarian central bank was never independent. So, be this from Bulgarian government, be this from international government. The first default happened during the First World War in 1915 on foreign debt, and then the central bank was managed by the creditors, by Paribas, by a French governor. So, and the Bulgarian left was pegged to the French franc, which was a golden standard then. So, and then Bulgarian left was relatively independent in the 30s, but in the 33, 34, Bulgarian left was a part of the Reichsmark payment system or clearing system. So, and then from 44, entered this Soviet ruble currency union. So, and here I have, this is the last communist 50 left. It was printed in January 1991, and it was printed in Moscow. If one takes the ruble of that year and compares with the left, the design is absolutely the same. Then, after fixing the exchange rate, then between 95 and 97, Bulgarian central bank was independent from international currencies, but very much dependent from the government, which led to the hyperinflation. After the hyperinflation, these 50 left were already 50,000 left. And it is 99, the banknote of 99. In the middle of 99, we did some sort of a monetary reform, very similar to the reform we are doing now. And what will happen 36 hours from now? The zeros were deleted. Now what we will do, this is the Bulgarian left pegged to the D mark. So 50,000 left were equal to 50 Deutsche Mark. So what will happen to this 50 left banknote 36 hours from now? These 50 will be just divided by 2. That's it. Nothing special.
Congratulations. What a history.
So, of course, there are public tensions, especially sharp this year, because there are about 3 parties out of 8 in the parliament who are basically talking against the euro, trying to frighten the public.
These are pro-Russian parties.
Pro-Russian parties, yes, pro-Russian parties. They don't have a majority, but they're all the time in the media and that sort of stuff, and it's very easy to create fears. At the same time, looking at the personal tax declarations of the members of parliament, because they're required by law to submit those, all of them, have savings in euro. None of them.
So. Exactly, very credible. Even the pro-Russians use the euro.
Yeah, there are a couple of members of parliament, from that particular faction, who are not very clever even with their own money. So they keep savings in the last 5 years, they keep their savings in British pounds. And the British pounds, devaluated about 50%, for this.
They're paid in rubles and then they keep it in British pounds.
Yeah,
so you cannot help this guy.
This year in May, actually on 9th of May, on the Pax Europeana Day, the president of Bulgaria appeared on the TV and said, Bulgaria should delay the entry to the European Eurozone. He appeared
the president.
Yeah, the president, and said,
he's very pro-Russian in my views as well.
Should delay because it's very dangerous. People will be getting poorer.
Really?
Yeah. Which
what
is
kind of communist kind of legacy
which is totally
he's defending?
Stupid and completely opposite to what he was speaking, when before this particular date. So 2 months before, or 2 years before, 1 year before, he was basically speaking in support of Bulgaria to join the Eurozone. And
Mr.
suddenly,
Putin called him before.
yeah, and now, they are trying. Of course, Bulgaria is ready by all the economic criteria to join the Eurozone. Even Bulgaria was invited to join the Eurozone on the same date as Croatia, on 10th of July 2020. And
Yeah.
Bulgaria then looked much more promising in terms of Maastricht criteria, budget deficit, interest rates, and so on and so forth, government debt, much better than Croatia. So, but because of such political moods, and because uh, of missing rule of law, Bulgaria was basically required to fix the rule of law system and then join the Eurozone. And the latter did not happen fully, and it remains to be done.
As an Austrian professor, I also have to apologize for our 2 years campaign against Bulgaria joining the Schengen zone. I'm deeply sorry. That was really very outrageous. And I'm so happy that you are now full member of Schengen as well.
Uh, so there were different. There were two countries opposing Bulgaria joining the Schengen zone. Austria had a not very happy experience, with Bulgarians,
I'm sorry.
who were bringing, not quite transparent by origin money to Austria, especially in the late communist years. And Netherlands, they had a special reason, to be suspicious, because there was a mafiosi killing in Amsterdam in 2006, I think. And then the Prime Minister of Holland, I forgot the name, sent a letter to Bulgarian ministry. They captured the killer and sent a letter to start an investigation to the Bulgarian Ministry of Interior. And then the Secretary of the Ministry of Interior was the future Prime Minister. So, and he basically did not respond to that letter. It was an official request to support the investigation of a killing on the streets of Amsterdam. And because the Prime Minister, I mean, this is Boyko Borisov, was with that sort of a background, Netherlands with some whatever bad memories, was reluctant. But the same group of pro-Russian politicians, they were against Bulgaria's membership in the Schengen zone. So they were predicting that Bulgaria will be invaded by foreigners, by immigrants from the Middle East, from Afghanistan, and that sort of stuff. So they were
Professor, how was the first year in Schengen? How was it for the Bulgarians?
Oh, very good. I mean, no problem. People are happy, so more Bulgarians, travel. More foreigners come. So it was very good. Probably the effect of the Schengen is roughly 1% of GDP up.
That's a
These are
lot.
tourism. These are the tourism.
And you can go now to Greece without border checks?
Oh yes, I just came from there.
It's a wonderful feeling, or given your complicated history with your southern neighbor, but also with Romania, a lot of complicated history to digest. But now you can also go to Romania without border checks.
Yes, of course. Now, basically, somebody calculated calculated the costs of visas and the costs of waiting, and when the visa were for the European Union were abolished, so the period between 99 and the abolition of the visa, which is 2007, so Bulgaria spent 139 billion on visas, not calculating the queues at the embassies. So
Unbelievable. It's really a big success. Congratulations for Schengen. What do you expect now with the Eurozone transition? What will be the economic benefit for the people and for the businesses, for the SMEs and for the whole economic system of Bulgaria in 2026?
I do not expect any sort of significant changes in prices or inflation and that sort of stuff for one very simple reason. This populist government, when they adopted the law this year in May on how to introduce the euro, they promised that they will control all the prices. So, and between the debate on the law in May and the enforcement of the law in September, all the retailers, they increased the prices, because they expected the control. So the so the inflation is already consumed. So it was a very stupid policy, So
That's what they do from time to time, the government. Nevertheless, yeah, what do you expect? Will Bulgaria be able to overtake economically in GDP per capita Greece and Romania in the coming years?
Uh, with Romania, we are basically at par at the moment. What Romania is doing at the moment, they're reducing the taxes, and they are introducing, since middle of the next year, they're introducing basically a 0% tax on reinvested profits.
Where? Which country?
Romania.
Ah, very good, very good.
So
Bravo, Romania. So they are
yeah,
competing as well.
yeah, I will send you a note. I mean, I was doing the translation, for one of the Bulgarian economic media. So, but I have the outline of the reform. I will send you a link.
So that will be zero
So
on reinvested profits.
yes,
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's very
yeah,
good news.
so that's
Tell me,
Estonian system actually.
tell me, Professor, why are the Romanians not able to join the Eurozone? What's wrong there?
Because they had a similar policy to the Bulgarian government, they were increasing, the salaries in the public sector in order to attract more people in the government and have some sort of a political backing, for electoral campaigns and that sort of stuff. And another thing they did in 2015, they reduced the indirect taxes, actually VAT, on food and foodstuff from 20 to 9%. So and then because of that, between 2016 until last year, they were gradually facing, a decline of the VAT revenue in the budget. So, but they had to keep the expenses, the spending. So, and they ended up with huge deficits, and they cannot handle that deficit and enter the Eurozone.
But it would be wonderful if they join the Eurozone because every new member
It
in the
will take them,
Eurozone is like
I mean,
a poke in the eye of Putin.
judging from their previous experience, which I am familiar with, and comparing this with the experience of Bulgaria, I believe Romania will need 2 to 3 years, to fix the deficit problem, and then it will be ready, for the Eurozone as well. The community of the central bankers, the community of the bankers, and many Romanians are in favor of joining the Eurozone, but at the same time, they very well understand at the moment that they are not ready.
Mm.
They cannot, they cannot be accepted.
In the relation with Greece, do you think Bulgaria can overtake Greece, which is still a more industrialized country and was always part of the free world? Can it be overtaken by Bulgaria's now economic miracle?
By some indicators, Bulgaria is getting closer. At the same time, how to say, Greek Greek government at the moment is focused on simplifying taxes and that sort of stuff, so they can return to higher growth. Their problem, however, is more on the labor market. They have very high youth unemployment, and this basically stops the. They have very protective system of the so-called social benefits. So
So you
they
think that the Bulgarian
if
model would be good also for Greece?
uh, Greece is logistically very difficult country, so these are about 1,000 big islands. So you need to keep the communication between them. You need to keep a relatively high level of public employment, especially typical central government bureaucracy, and they have very high defense expenditures because of the geographic structure of the country.
It's the
That
first time in history Bulgaria and Greece have now the same currency, are in the same defense system like NATO. You are in the same political union, economic union like the EU. And you have, of course, a contentious history between Bulgaria and Greece. Do you think this will unify your markets and you will be having
they,
much better relations?
uh, yes, I think yes. I think it happened already during the government debt crisis in Greece, like 14 years ago. Then there was a flight capital from Greece to Bulgaria. Uh, Actually, about 2 to 3% of GDP of 2011. That
Oh,
there
so
was a
much.
flight capital. Uh, there are about 4,000 Greek enterprises. There are about 60,000 bank accounts kept by Greeks. Uh, Greek ownership was of the banking system in Bulgaria was about 24% of the banking system and 25% of the credit. But Bulgaria did not suffer, from the Greek crisis because of the simple reason that it was Bulgaria or Bulgarians who were owning money, to Greek banks. So the Greek banks, were very much interested that Bulgaria is doing okay.
And you're doing okay. Still,
Yeah.
Professor, the reputation of Bulgaria in the EU is that you are a very poor country, that you are the poorest country in the European Union. And is that true? What you see is the kind of a
Okay.
discrimination against Bulgaria, and
No,
what you see the situation of
no.
the in
I mean,
relation, please.
given some of the background I already mentioned, so Bulgaria is the poor country because there was a reintroduction of the central planning in 95, 97. And when you get, from the average per capita income, like in Poland in 96, to reduction of this indicator by 50%. So how you catch up, So Poland won't be staying on the same place, So it requires time. So, but when Bulgaria started negotiation with the European Union in 99 for membership, the average GDP per capita was about 25% of the average EU GDP per capita. Now it is 75%. So it's three times even by this indicator.
When I was in Sofia the last time, I saw a lot of Maseratis, Ferraris, Porsche, and a lot of expensive real estate. So it's a kind of a boom town from the visible impression.
Uh, many of those luxury items came, from privileged contracts with the government.
Mhm.
So, including, using some of the European subsidies and that sort of stuff.
And that also
So,
needs to be cleaned up.
what we are witnessing as an effect, of the introduction of the euro, is that uh, uh, there were private savings. Oh, those cash which was kept in the pockets at home and that sort of stuff has been immediately, converted into real estate, and that's why the prices of the real estate went up this year. And the currency in the banks, the volume of the currency in the banks increased for this year by 11%. So people are
You see
basically
an
taking
impact
down.
on the economy gets less, gets more formalized
Yes,
by
yes,
the,
yes.
your banking system is now also part of the ECB banking system supervision and regulation. Do you expect a kind of anti-corruption effect by joining the Eurozone?
Uh, I mean, not for the locally owned banks, but luckily, the percentage as a share of the banking sector is relatively low. It is about 10%. So I believe, with the entering of the euro, this 10% will decrease. So, and it's very important, So if you take Croatia, the local ownership in the banking system is 3%. If you take Kosovo or Albania, the local ownership is less than 2%. Why? Because big European saving institutions and global saving institutions, they have an interest of being present in countries like those I mentioned for the simple reason that they grow faster.
In the international investment community, Bulgaria still had a dubious reputation in the last 20 years, and it was more or less a closed shop in some aspect. And there was the idea that there is a strong oligarch influence, and so and that was
That
why
was
many
that
didn't
that
come.
that
Do you
was that
expect that the Eurozone will have a positive influence on
the
opening the
specific
Bulgarian economy to
the
European investors?
specific requirement for Bulgaria to join the Eurozone. This is unique. Nobody had such a requirement. Is to fix the rule of law and deal away with corruption because it's very important, for the payment system. This is on the way. So one of the reasons, especially lead economies of the country, were insisting because at the beginning of this year, again there was a government crisis, then we had elections and that sort of stuff. The basic mood of the top representatives in the parliament and the government was not to ask for a convergence report by the ECB and European Commission and delay the entry into the Eurozone. So we started collecting signatures in January last year. For 1 day, we collected 5,000 signatures from reputable individuals, economists, professors, cultural leaders, TV personalities, and that sort of stuff. And we forced the government to apply for a membership. So
Very
one
good,
of the
Professor.
reasons,
I'm honored to meet you. You are the guy.
one of the reasons we were so united and we get such a support from the public was very simple. People believed, and they still believe, that if Bulgaria is a member of the Eurozone, the politicians will not be able to manipulate the central bank.
Yes.
So, and the central bank, which is a very stable institution, despite the political instability and that sort of stuff, what they did at the beginning of this year, I think in February or March, they included the reserves of the central bank, which were at the level of 112% of the currency in circulation. They included those reserves in the balance sheet of the central bank. Now the government cannot touch it. So, which is very good. I believe if the ECB follows this example, of the Bulgarian National Bank, it will be very good.
I read in
So,
the media some
which means
entertaining.
very simple. You comply with Article 119 and 130th of the treaty, and you provide for full independence of the central bank. Although there is some sort of ambiguity in Article 130, which basically asks the central bank, to follow the policies of the European Union. Of course, on the condition that it does not affect price stability and that sort of stuff. But if the ECB behaves like Bulgarian National Bank, it would mean that ECB is not financing government and ECB is not financing banks, private banks.
Yeah. The euro is a powerful tool for anti-corruption and de-oligarchization of Eastern European economies, and Bulgaria is a prime example.
I think yes.
Professor, there was an entertaining report that Bulgaria has suddenly much more millionaires, and it was widely read all over European media that because of the introduction of the euro, a lot of people suddenly started to use the monetary system, brought their money to the banks, and suddenly you have much more millionaires in Bulgaria.
No, but that's not necessarily means oligarchs and that sort of stuff. So, so the problem with oligarchy in Eastern Europe is very interesting. Typically in countries like Bulgaria, Ukraine, to some extent Romania, but not to that extent. Every new government was trying to create its own group of oligarchs, and that's why there is no oligarchy.
So basically, their best friends will be the new oligarchs the moment they take power.
Yeah.
That was the truth, I think, of most Eastern European countries. Yeah. But inside the Eurozone, of course, there is less control of the government on the
But
monetary
it's still
supply of the
it's still
banking sector.
I mean this situation with the oligarchy is still very beneficial compared to the Russian oligarchy, because oligarchs in Russia, they're on vertical dependence, from Kremlin. So here we have the competing oligarchs,
They always
So,
have, since Putin is in power for 25 years, he has always the same oligarchs until he doesn't like them and he jails them or puts them out of the window or whatever he does with his oligarchs. Yeah. Nevertheless, Professor, let's talk about Macedonia because Macedonia is your beautiful neighboring country. In history, Bulgaria wanted to have Macedonia and you really were fighting for freedom of Macedonia. Now Macedonia is ahead of the joining the European Union, possible in the next 5 or 10 years. But unfortunately, in Bulgarian politics, you have imposed many, many conditions. What's your view on
I believe
Macedonia?
I believe that after the elections in March or April this year, we will have much more deliberate government, deliberate democracy, and I do not expect any sort of a problem created by Bulgarian authorities to Macedonia to join the European Union.
Because we have now Montenegro, which is very, very good. Austria is supporting Montenegro for 2028. The president of Montenegro and the prime minister will come for the New Year's celebration here to Vienna. And so that's a safe bet. Albania as well is going to look quite good for 2029 to be in the EU. And the wonderful thing would be that the third NATO ally of the Southern Balkans, Macedonia, North Macedonia, would also move into.
We When we felt, we meaning, a group of about 100 university professors, writers, movie makers, when we felt, some sort of a negative sentiment by Bulgarian nationalists who are not nationalists, they're pro-Russian. Uh,
Mhm.
so I suspect there is a Russian influence in that group regarding Macedonia. So we felt that this group is gaining public popularity. I wouldn't say support, but some popularity. We created the Bulgarian Macedonian Club, and we are constantly in the media, and we are trying, to influence the opinion of both countries to resolve these issues at the moment.
What do you think would be the effect if Macedonia joins the European Union in, let's say, 2029, and you are both, you are like
So
in an economic zone. The
I,
dream
I,
of Götze Delchev come true, and the whole of
I will
Macedonia in the EU and
I will
NATO.
translate one short article
Please.
of myself, and and send it to friends in in Austria to translate it even into German.
I will put it to Twitter
So
and to the
the
media.
title of the article is How Important is Macedonia for Bulgarian Prosperity? And it happened that if you look at the statistics, especially export, because export creates income. So Macedonia, since 2004 until today, is more important for generation of prosperity of Bulgaria than Russia. Russia is a cost, so you only pay Russians, So Romania, Macedonia has a greater share in Bulgarian GDP than Russia. It's equal to the export of Bulgaria to Hungary and Czech Republic combined.
That's amazing. And you're completely supporting North Macedonia joining EU.
Of course.
Very
Of
good,
course.
very good. It is also that Bulgaria has a lot of regional disparity in prosperity. So you mean Sofia is very strong and rich region, but many of the regions in the south and in the east are much poorer than the central of Sofia. And so it would be wonderful if the whole region is in the European Union for also have a more equitable growth in the whole of Bulgaria.
Uh, that means also, resolving some of the border crossing issues with Serbia and that sort of stuff. So part of the northwest Bulgaria, which are not the poorest, but one of the poorest regions of the European Union, they are more inclined of making business and trade with Serbia, but the border crossings are closed. So
That should be also
they
come.
exist, but they're closed, so just because of some stupid policy of Bulgarian central government.
Okay, that needs also the European Union that must do much more cross-border infrastructure initiatives to have
No,
more
but
better
I
corridors.
mean, the roads exist, so you need just to open them. So
So some
there is
Serbia.
no visa regime, nothing, so it's relatively easy, to do trade and cooperate.
The other remarkable thing which we need to discuss, Professor, is the energy transition of Bulgaria away from Russia. Because you had a really amazing, very strong negative influence of Russia with this refinery. I think it's called in the at the Black Sea at Burgas.
Luko, yeah.
Lukoil,
Yeah.
and you had a lot of Russian influence in the energy sector. But in the last 3.5 years of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, you have basically chased out most of the Russian influence in your energy
No,
sector.
no supply of natural gas by Gazprom.
That's a
It comes
huge
different
change.
routes. Yeah, I mean, it was Bulgarian dependence on Russian natural gas was 98%.
98,
Yeah,
and now it's zero.
now it's zero.
It's amazing change.
And nothing happened. All the political parties I've mentioned, they were sort of weeping before camera. Here's the crisis, Bulgaria collapses, there is no Russian gas and that sort of stuff. Putin is a great guy and that sort of stuff. Uh,
In reality, you
with
managed.
the refinery, the
Mhm.
problem is not of that kind. First, it's a very modern refinery. It's one of the major taxpayers. So the indirect taxes and taxes on workers and management of the refinery are equal to 1% of GDP.
Mhm. Only one
So
company, 1% of GDP.
yeah,
It's
uh,
huge.
uh, the output of that, the production of that refinery, uh, is 3 times larger than the consumption of Bulgaria of diesel and gasoline. And part of that output goes to Ukraine. Actually, 60% of it was until last year, I'm not sure what is what is now, about 60% of the gasoline, sorry, of the diesel exported was going, to Georgia, Armenia, and Ukraine. And Ukraine, because it's bigger, had about 50% of the export, of diesel, which is very important, for the army, of course. So the situation was really difficult. That does not necessarily mean that Putin friends were not making money, out of selling, diesel to and gasoline to Ukrainian army. So, but this issue is now being resolved
It's a
thanks to the
huge
sanctions.
achievement.
Thanks to the sanctions.
That was the American sanctions
Yeah,
on
American and
Burgas.
British.
And what will be the future of this refinery? Will it be sold to the Swiss gun war, or will it
No,
be
no, no,
nationalized, or what's exactly the status
no.
of it?
I mean, sorry, I rarely speak in plural, but uh, we made a huge analysis and protest about Gunvor, and the entire media was basically informing the public, what is this about? And eventually, when Trump said, that the company are basically friends of Putin, everybody understood that, so.
So this transaction was not going to happen. And now will it be nationalized, or will it be sold to another company, or what's exactly it's open?
There, I mean, because these are the sanctioning authority which decides to deal or not to deal with a given refinery. In this case, Bulgarian refinery in Burgas. So it will be decided not by the Bulgarian government, which is very good. With the new budget, this was one of the reasons to go and protest again the draft budget for 2006. Sorry, 26, was that they allocated about 2% of GDP to buy a additional stake in the refinery, because Bulgarian government has 23% of the assets
Mhm.
of the shares of the refinery, and they wanted to buy. I mean, those who were in charge of the country were in charge of the country. They wanted to buy the refinery. It was a stupid decision because they are not the ones to decide, so to say. If they buy it, but it remains under sanctions, So what you
But
do,
they are the government, they can nationalize it. Yeah. It's not exactly that they have to buy it from Russia.
There is, I mean, I'm afraid we have to finalize. I
Sure.
must go to a funeral. Uh,
My condolences, Professor.
yeah,
You told me
it's
before.
actually a very close friend who was one of the human rights activists and one of the instrumental opinion leaders with whom we succeeded of bringing down the communist system.
What's his name?
His name is Dejan Kuranov.
Bless his memory, and thanks for his services for
So he
democratic
helped. He
Bulgaria.
was helping, and I was helping him. Supporting the opposition in Russia, in Serbia under Milosevic, in Belarus. He was more involved than me, but he was really a great person.
You Bulgarians have a great tradition also to support democratic change in the Western Balkans and in Ukraine. I want to thank you for this. And given your own history, let's maybe sum up like this. Bulgaria in the 19th century was one of the most crucial and most important country. It was very much the crucible of European history. And now, how do you feel, Professor, when now at this kind of 150 years of dramatic Bulgarian history, you are going in 2, 3 days, you will be full member of the West and being in all institutions and joining the Eurozone. How do you feel, Professor?
I feel very well, and I know that history very well, and I know that the Ottoman Empire Balkans, they were at some years, especially in the second half of the 19th century, they were freer than many of the of the European countries. So, and in fact, what we have, if all our countries, join the European Union and NATO, and the Eurozone, we will have the same prosperity prospect, for all of our countries.
That's a wonderful closing remark, Professor. I wish you all the best and thank you very much for your contribution in the last 35 years for freedom of Bulgaria, for economic freedom in Europe, and the Bulgarian miracle, the model, which I say, please, for Ukraine and for the Western Balkans. This is the way to do, and everybody who is listening, follow this Bulgarian success model. Europac, NATO membership, Euro membership, and of course, stability and prosperity via 10% flat tax. This is perfect.
Plus rule of law.
The rule of law, and of course, a good cadastre system, the return of the stolen properties from the past. Yeah.
So
And
in German, I mean, the translation of the treaty into Bulgarian is that to enter the Eurozone, Bulgaria should have Rechtsstaat. So the
yes,
German translation of the treaty is that uh, Rechtlichkeitsstaat. So,
yes, the rule of the law. That
yeah,
must be the fundament of the state. Yeah.
yeah,
It's in Vienna at the Hofburg. We have written
yeah,
it. Yeah.
I know.
And this is the tradition. And I want to close now. Thanks you a lot, Professor. Wonderful. All the best. And great celebration on the 1st of January 2026. Congratulations to the Eurozone.
Thank you for
And all the
inviting me.
best. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. I will close now.